Hi, John Harbaugh here with the Harbaugh Coaching Academy. The importance of coaches in the lives of young athletes can never be underestimated, especially today. I hope you enjoy the valuable, practical insights in this interview with our expert coach. And be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay, let's start by talking a little bit about your connection with quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Is it inherent because that's the position you played, or is that something that you work very actively at?
Great question. I think it's both. Part of my framework of how I see a lot of things as it pertains to the football team is through the lens and the eyes of the quarterback. So that might be how we put together our offense. That might be how we put together meetings and structure the installation of plays, and ultimately working backwards from, what is best for all of our players, but the quarterback being a driving force behind that. And that probably does stem from, call it what it was, my, failures as a player. But through that journey, I was always very observant of the things that worked, the things that maybe, hey, would this have been better? The way things were taught or the way I even personally received things may have been different than some of the other quarterbacks that I was around. So I always want to make sure all of our quarterbacks in the building, whether it's the starter, the backup, or the third guy, whoever that is, I always want to make sure we're reaching different ways of communicating and teaching with those guys. And then it is something that you have to work at. Whether you're the head coach, that relationship with the quarterback is very important. The play caller, that's even more important. The position coach, and I kind of take a role in all of that while also making sure I've got great people around that position as well, and which I do. And Josh McCown is the quarterback coach, who's a former quarterback. Wes Phillips is our offensive coordinator. He's a former quarterback. So I think as much as you can layer different perspectives and different voices for that position, the more comfortable they're going to be, because they're going to find the right way for them in the mixture of what's best for the team.
Let's go back to when you said you think that the head coach, regardless of what else the head coach is coaching, needs to have a great relationship with the quarterback. I've actually been there where Jim and John Harbaugh have argued about who loves their quarterback more.
Oh, I bet.
Why does the head coach need to be so tightly bonded to this one position?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons, you can go with that. You can say, hey, in both of their cases, both Jim and John, the quarterback takes up a ton of their cap space, and rightly so. They've got two fantastic players. But from a standpoint of team building, you always want the field general on offense to be, in a lot of ways, indicative of both those guys wear C's on their chest for them. We had Sam Darnold this past season, came into our organization new, and the type of position and platform we wanted him to have with our team and his teammates. He was voted almost unanimously a captain before the season. And then with that becomes a layer of leadership, an extension of the head coach. Those guys are normally really in depth and are in tune with the locker room. So it's organic things like how you manage your team and how you build the different nuances of a schedule throughout a long 17-game season. But then it's that one-on-one factor of building a relationship, building trust, so that player knows that you're right in there in the fight with them, and you're always going to have their backs. They can play freely, but also commit to playing how you need them to play within your offense so that your whole team has success. Because the success of the quarterback, regardless of how they do it, what their style is, it has positive impacts on every layer of your organization, on and off the field. So it's got to be a priority. It's got to be something that you pour into personally, and regardless of whether you're a defensive background coach, offensive, special teams, that dynamic between head coach and quarterback is always going to be something that will be a winning edge, at some point in time during the season.
You just mentioned style. Have you ever had a quarterback we often hear that the quarterback is the extension of the head coach on the field.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a quarterback, not necessarily as a head coach, but even as a position coach, who was diametrically different from you in personality? And if so,
in a lot of ways, you could say, Kirk Cousins, just from a standpoint of, in a lot of ways we were similar, and in a lot of ways we were different, but we found a way to make that a positive. And, he brought out great things in me and taught me things and helped me kind of expand my scope. And I think I did the same for him.
So how do you do that when someone is wired so differently than
I think it's all about, the power of the why. If you believe in something as a coach very strongly, hopefully you believe in it, not just because it's the way you came up or what you learned many, many years ago. Hopefully you think about it in a lens of this principle or this way of looking at things will make you a better player. And then when you feel a little bit of, I wouldn't even say pushback, but part of managing the position is managing people and understanding people. So you start to sense a little uncomfortable reaction to things or an extra question here or there. You better go circle back to the why. This is why it's important, and it might have an impact on other layers of your offense to understand the nucleus of the why. And then what that does is it empowers them to deliver the message through their play, through how they interact with wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, their offensive line. There's so many layers to the position that it's never going to be perfect. And that's why it's got to be an organic thing where you got to be willing as a coach sometimes. Your favorite play on the call sheet might be one that the quarterback just doesn't see, just doesn't feel. You got to take a red pen and you got to cross that play out. You got to move on. There's plenty of plays, but the good ones are the ones that player on the field feels the best about.
It's funny, Kevin Stefanski says that. He says, my favorite plays are the plays the quarterback wants to run.
Favorite meeting all week is we've put in the whole game plan. We've built the call sheet. I go through every play on the call sheet with the quarterback on a Saturday morning. And my favorite thing is I get a strong cup of coffee and a red Sharpie. And I hold that thing and I start to sense some, uncertainty or, they list, hey, we go through a section of the call sheet and these 5 calls are my favorites. Well, hey, what about that 6th one right there? You really don't like that one, do you? No, I do. It's just not a favorite. Well, I can get rid of it right now. Can I? And they're like, no, I like the play. And it's like, no, I'm getting rid of it. And then they said, no, stop. Why don't you, let's get rid of this one. And I'm like, okay. And the fastest, because what that does is that provides clarity. And it's one more play that you could call that maybe, the starting point isn't what I view it as. And that's what I know or what I think or what I'm comfortable or confident in means absolutely nothing when those 11 guys jog out there on the field. So I'm always on the hunt for elimination of anything. Now, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I may be fighting a little bit more, circling back on that why. Here's why we need this play. But by Saturday, we got enough bullets that it never hurts to lose a few.
How do you encourage a defensive-minded head coach to create a bond with a quarterback?
I think that's, probably the most important thing for the quarterback is to have that relationship. And I think the way you could do it is infusing your expertise into the teaching and development of the quarterback. So what is your fastball? Hey, your background is in coverage and you've coached it at a world-class level. Well, teach your quarterback some of the things that you try so hard to coach against. Disguising coverage. Here's how you tell the difference between this coverage and that coverage. You can really see, a man coverage versus a zone coverage by this. And it might be your background is in the front or in pressuring, coming up with blitzes. Hey, these blitzes are really hard. Here's how you can, best diagnose what you're going to get, and then work in a way where, in a lot of ways, post-game, it's not necessarily here's the things you could have done better, but here's hey, you did a great job seeing this disguise right here, finding this completion, maybe highlight it in front of the whole team so everybody can engage in kind of what you're looking for. And then the last part of it is, defensive coaches are built on a foundation of toughness. The quarterback position, the greatest quarterbacks in our league, no matter what they did, glitz and glam, and they're the most famous player on the field, they got to be tough. So when you see a guy stand in there and make a throw, take a hit in the pocket and get up and keep playing, highlight that in front of the team. Make sure everybody on your football team knows 2 things, that we got the right guy, and the second thing is highlight when he does things that they've got to take a step back and really acknowledge, hey, I've done it a couple times where, hey, all you guys out there, you play Madden and you think you could have grown. I could have easily been an NFL quarterback, but instead I was a receiver Justin Jefferson, or said I was a running back, Aaron Jones. Are you sure you guys want to do this right here? And play the clip and slow-mo it and play it again and play it again and play it again. And they're getting their face peeled off on a blitz, and they're standing in there making a throw that results in Justin grittying in the end zone. But did anybody actually see what happened? So let's all acknowledge that, give it up for that guy right there, and then we keep it moving. But there's ways of highlighting the position, not in an uncomfortable way or singling them out, but there's a time and a place for everything.
So you're essentially answering that what do you believe is the single most important thing for a quarterback to regularly hear from his head coach?
I think as many times as you can, shout your praise loud enough for everybody to hear. So that way, the most important thing is then you got to be able to coach those guys hard too, loud enough for everybody to hear. Because if your leader on your offense is willing to accept that coaching, so is your receiver, so is your left tackle, so is your running back, your center, your tight end. These guys will acknowledge that now we're all in an environment where it starts with the head coach acknowledging, hey, I can be better for you guys, and I will be, and I'm going to work really hard to do that. But the quarterback's got to be in total lockstep with that, doing those same things, demonstrating professionalism, and ownership is a huge word for me, because then your whole team will. And I think that's a huge part of it. But it comes, there's a good balance of making sure you're, you got to be able to coach the things that you need to coach, but shout that praise, whether it's a practice, whether it's a game clip, whether it's an individual drill. Make sure that you're acknowledging those things directly with the player. But it's never a bad idea for the whole team to really gain confidence as you gain confidence in the player by making sure everybody's aware.
What about plays? Where do you come up with new plays from?
Well, I think there's a couple different schools of thought. Is it a foundational thing that you're just making a tweak to try to present a different look to the defense, or flip the script on that? Let's work backwards from the principles of how they're going to defend. What are they being coached to do? What is their job? Every defensive job has a clear-cut end game. Hey, I'm this in coverage. I'm this responsibility. I'm a hook player. I'm a flat player. I'm a post safety. Well, then let's figure out the best way to put them in conflict. And there's a lot of ways to do that. You can try to marry the run and the pass and put people that have a run responsibility and a pass responsibility. Well, those sound like two different things to me. So let's make them have to do a little bit of both and then play the rest of the snap from there. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is have things that start out looking the same that are different. And what I mean by that is, hey, I've done my film study. Coach said I need to be in the film room studying the top concepts that this team runs. Well, let's make a lot of things look like that end up being counterproductive. The fact that you were trying to stop something and it ends up being a different layer to a route, a different cut, an in-break, an out-break, a double move, and use that film study against them. So now you just create gray. You create uncertainty for what I believe defensive coaches try to do, is create as much certainty of doing your job as possible. Well, once the ball gets snapped, we're trying to make things as gray as possible and as unique to where every blade of grass matters, every millisecond matters, every chance we can win leverage matters. And then it's about the techniques and fundamentals of just throwing and catching at a world-class level and all the coaching that leads in to be able to do that.
Do you have any players who bring you plays?
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
This college ran this. Can we try that? Or
oh,
these
yeah.
guys?
A lot of it comes from, the backup quarterback sometimes, because they're the guys that, I constantly tell them when I was a backup quarterback, for every day I was told, hey, keep competing. You got a chance here. I was told, hey, you should probably coach. Enough people say that to you, you eventually have to listen, I guess. But no, there's one of my favorite things to do in the whole world. Now that we can have veteran guys on the practice squad, I can think of examples. Most recently a guy named Bobby McCain, who 10-year veteran, been a starter at corner, at safety, at nickel. He was one of our vets we wanted to have on our practice squad. He knows our defense. He can be inserted in emergency in a lot of different spots. Well, he was on the scout team. So a lot of times, like, hey, Bobby, what did you see there? And he would say, that really wasn't, I know what you're trying to do, but that really wasn't as difficult as maybe you want it to be for me. And I'd say, tell me how to make it better. And he'd say, well, if this guy releases this way and this guy runs vertical right now, that's going to put me in a bind. And what is a bind? That's gray area. So a lot of times the feedback from some of those players that you trust and are trying to play things straight up in the right way, you can gain a lot of feedback by just that practice rep of, hey, here's how we taught it. What do you think? And well, I kind of like it like this. And then it happens in a game, and I'm looking for Bobby on the sidelines. Bobby! And he's got a big old smile on his face because he knows he just helped us get better. Now, I'm not going to hit him over the head and say, you should be coaching, because I know how that sounds. So, but when he's ready, he'll make a darn good one.
Use all your resources, right?
That's right.
Think back to when you first started coaching. Something that you know now that you wish you could have told yourself then.
I think the biggest thing that I've kind of grown over the years understanding is it doesn't matter what I know. It doesn't matter what's, what I can see, what I can think. It matters what these players can feel and think, and how to teach, how to get guys to understand when you might have 30 players in an offensive install. How do you teach to the whole room? But there's enough principles of how different guys learn that they're all taking what they need to out of it. And that could be, making sure you've got visuals from a film or you're drawing things or you're, telestrating things. That could be verbally asking questions. Tell me how to run this route, Justin. And then in that moment, he's got that reaction of how he takes that question lends you to, hey, is he receiving the information the right way or not? And then you got to make sure that you have different aspects of walkthroughs and post-practice review, and it all circles back to teaching and making sure by the time the ball gets kicked off on Sunday, as much of what you have in here that you want those guys to know, how have you articulated that in a way where now they have that information, it's their own, and they can just go play.
Visit harballcoachingacademy.org.